Good afternoon.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Elsa and Claudia, for joining the class. It's a pleasure for me to share it again this Friday with you. And well, if you remember yesterday, we discussed a lot of theoretical aspects of the writing section, task number 1. I left you a little homework for you to do. It was related to a passage we read and listened about Claudius, right? And we said yesterday that today we will be analyzing that material for us to learn how to apply the structure and template we have for the first essay we have to write in this task, okay? So we're going to do that. Please send me, stream this to YouTube, and then we're going to start with our class, okay? Very good. As I do this, please go about opening the document that I sent yesterday to the WhatsApp group. You remember that I sent the template or the structure that is also, of course, accompanied with the illustration or with the essay sample. Please open it so that we can review it. And as I say, learn how to apply that structure into an actual essay. That is, of course, a very important thing we need to learn, right? Very good. Just give me a second. Just a little sec until. Okay. Yeah, I see, Claudia. No, don't worry. It's okay. It's okay. It's totally fine. You know, this disease is like that. Don't worry. Anyways, just give me a sec. We're not okay. We are live. We are live already. Great, fantastic. So thank you very much. Great. Don't worry, dear Claudia. It's totally fine. I understand. It has happened to all of us. We are okay. Awesome. Great. I think I'm not sure why the streaming doesn't seem to start. Okay, good. We're gonna give it some time. Well, great. So let us open then the document. Let me share my screen and let us go, as I told you, initiating this document. That is very important for us to learn how to apply this structure, okay? Where do we have it? We have it right here. Okay, for some reason, okay, well, stop the live stream. Give me a sec. We are going through some technical problems with the YouTube thing. Okay. Yes. Yes. Like that. And let's see. Oh, once again. All right. What a weird thing. Okay. I guess it's just some sort of bug or something like that that is going on here in this thing. Well, doesn't matter. We're gonna leave it like that, and we're going to hope it streams, or anyways, if it doesn't, I'm gonna upload it later. Okay, so let us open the documents that I was talking about. That is this one. I sent it to the WhatsApp group yesterday. You have it there if you want to download it again. Great, so here we are. So yesterday left to homework, as I told you, that was to analyze this by yourself. So let us analyze it once again with me, and then we're going to practice for this, all right? So yesterday I told you that in this essay, we were going to summarize the reading passage and also the listening passage. And what we be, let's say, emphasizing during the entire essay is that there is, as I told you yesterday, right? There is some sort of contradiction and opposition between the reading passage and between the listening passage, as we discussed yesterday. And it's very important for us that throughout the essay, we also need to, of course, expose that there is such a relationship between the reading and the listening. And that's why this structure and template is very important, because by using this template, I assure you that you're not going to merely summarize, but you're also going to, as I mentioned, be able to contrast the reading passage with the listening passage. You know what I mean by contrast, right? Contrastar. You know, when you expose, let's say something, you have something here, right? And on the other hand, you have something different to that. You are contrasting, right? You are exposing this two opposite things because you are contrasting, right? You have here this on one hand and the other one in this one. So as I said, we're going to contrast the reading with the listening, as I told you yesterday. Well, let us see the structure we have. The structure basically consists of two different sentences, okay, dear students? The first one is this one, the reading extra leads off with, and the second one is this. Nonetheless, in the lecture, it is said that, and as you notice, dear students, these are sentences that we are going to apply here in our essay that I wrote, summarizing and, as I say, contrasting the reading passage and also the listening passage that we had yesterday as a homework, the passage about Claudius, right? Well, what can we do right now? Notice, first of all, that this sentence is highlighted with yellow, right? And this other sentence as well. And that's because here in the essay I wrote as an illustration, I also highlighted the sentences with yellow for you to see how I apply these same sentences here, these very same sentences, how I apply them into the essay I wrote here as an illustration for you, okay? So let me show you how I use this first sentence. The first sentence is this one, and you always have to copy it on your essays. The rest is always going to be different, but this sentence, right, and this sentence are always going to be the same. Look at it. It says, the reading extract leads off with, and notice how I apply this. The reading extract leads off with the idea that Claudius was not a terrible emperor for the Roman Empire, and he contributed with illustrious works for his people. Notice that what I'm doing after I write this sentence that we have here in the structure, right? That is the very same sentence, as I say, I'm not making any change. It's the very same sentence. What I do is to summarize in a very, very superficial manner the reading passage we had about Claudius. Now notice and pay attention to my words. I'm saying very superficial, right? And that is true because if you notice, dear students, I'm being superficial and I'm being very redundant for you to understand my point. Super superficial, because here in this first mention of the reading passage I'm being dramatically superficial. I'm not mentioning details, the points made in the reading passage. No, I'm simply summarizing this in a very superficial way, right? That the reading passage said Claudius was not a terrible emperor for the Roman Empire, but he contributed with illustrious works for his people. This is what the reading passage said, right? I'm not giving my opinion here or I'm not adding something I knew externally about Claudius. I'm simply stating what the reading passage told us. As I am always mentioning, I am summarizing, okay? So after we finalize this, we go with the next sentence, okay? After we mention a very brief summary of the reading, we go with the second sentence in the introduction. Nonetheless, in the lecture, it is said that, right? Here we have it. Nonetheless, in the lecture, it is said that, and notice how I'm going to apply this here in my essay. I have the sentence here with yellow, as I told you. Nonetheless, in the lecture, it is said that this optimistic understanding of Claudius' authority and deeds is actually inaccurate. Notice, what I'm doing is I'm pasting the sentence once again, right, without any type of modification. And what I do after I paste the sentence is to summarize, once again, in a very superficial manner, the lecture in this opportunity, not the reading passage anymore because I already did it. But in this case, I am summarizing the lecture. And that is exactly what you do every single time when you are writing your essay. You simply use the first sentence, you summarize the reading superficially, and then use the second sentence and you summarize the lecture very superficially. That's the introduction. As you can see, it's very simple. And if you notice, what we are doing here with this introduction, as I told you beforehand, is that we are contrasting the reading with the listening. We are saying, on the one hand, we have the reading that says this about Claudius. But on the other hand, we have the lecture that says this contradictory opinion about Claudius. We are simply, as I say, summarizing and contrasting at the same time by using this structure. And this is what you have to do every single time. And then you can actually write this, that is a transition phrase, as we have seen in the speaking section. I am going to proceed to expose both views, right? And in this case, you always use 2 points or column, however you want to name this. And well, this sentence basically serves the purpose of indicating, okay, I am finalizing with my introduction. I'm about to enter the body of my essay, right? Very good. So, and that is the introduction, as you notice. Is there any question, dear Elsa or Claudia, with regard to how to write down the introduction? Something that I could clarify? Please tell me.
Is it important to use always the mention that the reading passage says that and the lecture says that? Necessary to specify that?
Yes. Okay, thank you very much, dear Elsa, for the question. Yeah, certainly. I mean, it is not, let's say, compulsory, as you said, in the sense that if you don't mention that, you're not going to be, or, well, your essay is not going to be received. But it is very much important because if you think about it, if you don't mention what a specific part of the material you are discussing, everything is going to become chaotic because when the reviewer reads this essay, what he's trying to do is to look for your understanding on both of these materials and how you manage to synthesize that information into one single essay. And the way you do that, as I say, is by making yourself very, making very clear that you are, as I mentioned, summarizing first of all the reading, and then you are summarizing the lecture. This exercise of, as I say, contrasting the reading with the lecture, it is very important because it helps us to offer that clarity to the essay, because we are, as I say, allowing the reviewer to see, okay, now he's discussing the reading. I want to see his understanding of the reading. And then I also want to see his understanding of the lecture in order to see if he managed to catch the details in both passages and he didn't confuse the information, or how he's making sense of them both. And as I mentioned, I would say it's a very good practice to always specify what material we are discussing. And that's the reason why in the sentences themselves, we are, as you noticed, indicating if we are discussing the reading or the lecture. And I would say that it's a very healthy practice because of those reasons, because when you are trying to write this essay, you want to make it clear, and you also want to make it very much organized so that the reviewer doesn't get confused when reading it. And well, as I say, making sure of your understanding of both passages. But yeah, I mean, I would say that is the correct manner to do it. Okay, very good.
Thank you.
All right, my pleasure, Elsa. Great. So let us continue. After we have discussed this, we have to jump to the body. The body of the essay, dear students, if you understood this introduction, is basically the same. Now, what is the only difference? Let us remember that what we were doing in the introduction is to summarize and to contrast the reading passage with the lecture in a very superficial manner, right? And in this case, what we're going to be doing instead of that is to, once again, summarize and contrast the reading with the lecture, but not in a superficial manner anymore. We're going to summarize and contrast with more details, with more specific mentions. Here, we're going to allow ourselves to discuss the rest of details, information, and data mentioned in the reading and the lecture. We're not going to be that superficial. You're going to notice. So, what is the first sentence of the body? Is this one. Firstly, in the reading passage, it is claimed that, and let us see how I use it. So it says, firstly, in the reading passage, it is claimed that Claudius was very innovative. Now, maybe you are wondering, why am I using this word here or this connector? Firstly, you noticed, dear students, yesterday when I sent you the reading passage, how, for example, this reading passage here, right, the one about Claudius, at the beginning of the passage, right, it is this one, right, that we had yesterday. At the beginning of the passage, we see that the author of this material tried to define and clarify the topic of the overall reading passage. And then he started to give some points and illustrations of this topic, right? For example, if you think about it very carefully, what is the first topic or point made in this reading passage about Claudius? Is this one. Look at it. Claudius' reign was important for its major innovations, because what is before this sentence, what is mentioned, or what is aforementioned in this case, is basically, as I say, some sort of explanation of who was Claudius, and basically the problematic and, well, let's say the topic and issue the author is going to discuss in the reading passage. But from here on, from this sentence until the end, it is, as I say, a compilation of different points and illustrations that somehow illustrate and convey the information the author is trying to make in this case, that Claudius was a good emperor for the Roman Empire. So in this case, the first point will be Claudius' reign was important for its major innovations. And if you notice, that's the reason why here in the template, we have these connectors, like firstly, secondly, and finally, because the reading passages, and you're going to notice this, dear students, are always organized that manner. They always start with some sort of definition of what the topic is going to be at the beginning, and then they continue with some points that are very, very easy to identify, because it's like, as I always told you, points or ideas are those information or pieces within the paragraph that encapsulate, right, different information, data, and well, conversations within the passage. And in this case, I think that if you read this carefully, it's very easy to notice that this one is the first point, right? And as you can see here, we have another reason for the hostility of Asian authors, and he continues. So the first point that we're going to summarize here is, well, that he was very innovative. And notice how I'm using this sentence here in order to, as I say, introduce my summary of the first point of the reading passage. And that's why I told you that in this case, the body is exactly the same than the introduction, but with the only difference that in this case, we are not going to summarize superficially, but we're going to summarize in a more detailed manner. We are summarizing point by point. We're starting with the first point, and as you're going to be able to see, we're going to continue summarizing the second point made in the reading, the third point made in the reading, etc., etc. Look at it. So it says, firstly, in the reading passage, it is claimed that, and let us see how I summarize the first point in the reading passage. Firstly, in the reading passage, it is claimed that Claudius was very innovative. As I told you, this was the first point. And what is next to this sentence or summary? What is next is a complement I'm doing of this sentence. But notice, this complement that I am mentioning right now is not my opinion, or is not an external information I am getting from any other place. This sentence that I'm using here, that is to say, he came out with remarkable works and reforms to the Roman Empire, is the information the same passage gave me in the first point, in the reading passage, right, about Claudius. And what I'm doing is to use that information or details to complement my summary of the reading passage. Let us remember that in this essay, our objective is to get at least 150 words. And that means that, of course, we are looking for manners to increase our quantity of words. So, of course, you could, let's say, summarize the first point in the reading passage with this only sentence if you want. But I am adding, in this case, this complement with more details mentioned in the reading passage, because, as I say, I want to have an essay that is well complemented, that is well structured, and that has some sort of consistency. So every single time you can add details that were in the same reading passage. I remark that because I don't want you to understand that you have to bring information by yourself. No, it's the same information that you obtain in the reading passage. If you manage to get some details from there and you can include them here, summarizing them, fantastic, because as I say, this helps you to complement, okay? This helps you to complement the reading. Very good. Then notice the second part. It says, nevertheless, and here we have the second sentence. So that is the first thing in the body. We use the sentence we have in the reading passage, excuse me, in the structure, right? First, in the reading passage, it explained that. You have it here. First, in the reading passage, it explained that. We summarized the first point. Claudius was very innovative. We complemented, and now let's go with the second sentence. Nevertheless, in the listening presentation, it is noted that, and let us see how I used it. We have here. Nevertheless, in the listening presentation, it is noted that the only reformation and creative modification Claudius postulated in the Roman Empire was treason. Namely, he was able to corrupt the Roman armies and to use them for his benefit. Notice what I'm doing here. I'm using this second sentence to now discuss what the lecture said about the first point in the reading. Because if you notice, dear students, what the lecture does every single time is that they respect the same chronological order of the points made in the reading, and they discuss those points in the same order. If you listen carefully to the lecture we had yesterday, right, that we listened yesterday, the professor said right at the beginning, so the reading passage says that he was innovative, but that was not actually true, right? And he continues arguing why he said that that point was false. And as you notice here, what we're doing is to summarize the first point made in the lecture. The first point made in the lecture, as I say, is normally the same point of the reading passage, but the contrary position. It's like as if they were trying to objetar, the first argument made in the reading passage, right? So what we are doing here, as I say, is to summarize that part. We are summarizing the first point made in the lecture right after we finish with the first point made in the reading, right? And that is the use of the sentence that we have here in the structure. Nevertheless, in the listening presentation, it is noted that, and we continue, right? And if you notice here, student, as I told you, what we are doing in this first paragraph of the body is to do exactly the same than the introduction. We are contrasting. We are saying, well, on one hand, we have the reading passage that says this about Claudius, and on the other hand, we have this in the lecture that shares with us this contradictory view or perspective about Claudius. And we are doing exactly the same in the body, but as I told you, we are doing it in a more detailed manner. And we are now summarizing point by point. We have started this paragraph with the summary of the first point made in the reading passage, and we have contrasted that with the first point made in the lecture, right? I think it's very clear to see that what we're doing here, as I say, is to contrast the reading with the lecture, right? The first point of the reading with the first point of the lecture, and that is the first paragraph of the body. Is there any question, dear students, with regard to this? Questions about the first paragraph, how to use this structure here? Is there any question? No?
No.
Okay. Very good. I think there are no questions then. Great. I think it's very simple, right, to see. And then, well, if you understood this, as I say, it's exactly the same for the rest of the essay. Notice our second paragraph here in the structure. It's secondly, in the reading excerpt, it is pointed out that, and what we're going to do here is to use this sentence to introduce our summary of the second point of the reading passage. In this case, not the first point anymore, because we have already summarized that point here in the first paragraph. But now here we're going to summarize the second point of the reading passage. Let us see how I did it. Here we have. Secondly, in the reading excerpt, it is pointed out that Claudius was a straight ruler and judge for his people. What am I summarizing this? Because the second point, if you read once again the reading passage, is that Claudius was a very straight and just ruler, and that he imparted justice, etc., etc. And notice I am complementing that with more information made in the second point of the reading passage. Further, he executed justice and collaboration to slaves and facilitated the acquirement of the Roman citizenship. What am I doing here? I am simply summarizing the reading, right? I as I say, adding more information that I managed to, well, to derive from the reading passage, and I'm using that information to complement my summary of the second point in the reading passage, right? When we finalize this, we come back to the structure, and let's see what we have. We have the contrasting phrase. The listening passage claims notwithstanding, el pasaje de escucha clama sin embargo, right? We continue here. The listening passage claims notwithstanding that Claudius was not indeed a just and righteous ruler. Likewise, he is said to have loved violence and the elimination of indigenous weak populations. Okay, so notice what I'm doing here. I am simply contrasting. Right here, we summarize the second point made in the reading. And as you remember, the reading is always in favor of Claudius. And now we are contrasting that, estamos contrastando the reading passage in its second point with the second point of the lecture that, as you know, always goes against Claudius. So what I am right now summarizing what the reading passage said, what the listening passage said in its second point, that Claudius was not a just and righteous ruler, but that he was actually very violent. He was very racist, trying to eliminate weak indigenous populations, etc., etc. As I say, this is what we are doing here. And well, when you finalize the second paragraph, dear students, you go to the third one. Now notice, it's not a conclusion or something like that. This is simply another paragraph summarizing the last point of the reading and the last point of the lecture. We are not using a conclusion in this essay whatsoever. I'm going to explain why. So let us go first of all to this last paragraph, and notice it's very important for you to maintain those paragraphs. That is to say, there is a separation, right? There is a space between the first paragraph. Notice we have a space here, right? And there is a separation between the second and the third one. This space should be respected because we are trying to make our essay aesthetically good looking. And it's very important for us to maintain this. Why? Because if we do not maintain those spaces, our essay is going to feel too much compact, and we do not want to do so. Because when the essay is separated with some aesthetic, as I say, spaces, it looks very good with some paragraphs, division. But if we make it everything very compact, as I say, it looks, I don't know, very fluffy, and it doesn't look good. So as I say, always respect this spaces we have here, okay? So the last sentence in order to summarize the last point of the reading passage is this one. Finally, in the reading selection, it is stated that, and we continue. Finally, in the reading selection, it is stated that Claudius was from to recognize the value of diversity in his kingdom. Why am I saying this? Because this is what the last point of the reading passage said. The only thing I'm doing is to summarize it. And I am complementing that with more information in the reading passage. Namely, he disposed many political charges to previously owned slaves and women, a practice, not very common in those times. And well, as we have finalized summarizing the last point in the reading passage, we go to the structure, and what do we find? The last contrasting sentence in order to introduce our summary of the lecture in this case. That is to say, on the other hand, in the presentation, it is mentioned that, and notice how I used it. Here I have it. On the other hand, in the presentation, it is mentioned that his decisions were not appropriate and turned out to be what? Harmful for the empire. The slaves he charged with power ended up being corrupt, and his wives were abominable. To top it off, his legacy brought us one of the worst rulers in human history, namely Nero. So as you can see here we have the summary of the last point in the lecture, and thus we are finalizing with the entire essay. As I say, we are not including a conclusion in our essay. Why? Because a conclusion, dear students, normally and naturally is going to be a summary. So think about it. The entireness of our essay is a summary. So if we include a conclusion, then we will be introducing a summary within a summary. And that is, I think, totally useless. And of course, it wouldn't bring any positive addition to your essay. And thus, of course, you wouldn't receive more punctuation or a higher score. The only thing you will be doing, as I say, is to repeat more information. And maybe you say, but isn't that going to give me more words in my essay? Yes, but repetitive words. And remember, I mean, the fact is to have good words, a good quantity of words, but all those words must be correctly written, and they must always add something positive and innovative to your essay. If they are just repetitions or pasted words from the reading passage, they are not going to help you. So as I say, don't read a conclusion, concentrate in summarizing the reading and the lecture very well, in offering this very, very detailed and spaced and aesthetically good looking essay. And I assure you, I've tasted this myself. you're gonna receive a very good score. Okay. Is there any question, dear students, with regard to how to use the structure in the essay? Please tell me. Questions? I listen to you. Any question? No, no questions? All right, great. If there are no questions, that means that you have understood. And now we're gonna practice. As I told you, where are we gonna practice? Because the only way to improve this is to practice, okay? So please, right now, I'm gonna show you the second reading passage that we're going to use in order to practice. And I'm gonna give you 3 minutes for reading that passage, and then we're gonna listen to a lecture, we're gonna take your notes, and of course, then you're gonna have time for writing that essay, okay? Using the structure, applying what we have learned. So let's go to that. Let me open the simulator and let us access that very important practice that we have here. Give me a sec. Okay, resources. All right. Have it here. Very good. Okay, dear students. So let us practice, as I say. I'm sending right now to, well, this is the one that we have already. We're not going to use this one. We're going to go for a different one. Okay, now, good. Here I have the second reading passage, okay, that we're going to use in order to practice this time. So please, I am sending it to the WhatsApp group, dear students, and I want you to please read it, okay? I'm gonna give you 3 minutes because as we have discussed yesterday, you have 3 minutes for reading this passage, and that's all you have. So please, look at my screen in order to have your chronometer, 3 minutes on the clock, and please, all of you, dear students, can start reading the passage that I just sent to the WhatsApp group is here, okay? You can please start reading it now. All right, well, your time is over, okay? We have finalized with the reading passage, and now it's time for us to listen to the lecture, okay? So please let us pay attention together to the lecture. You know you have to take your notes as you listen, because we're not going to listen to this twice, but merely once. So please make sure to listen very carefully, and then we're going to start with the practice, all right? So please let us go and listen to this new lecture.
Now listen to part of a lecture on the topic you just read about.
All right, so the essay that you all read last week, well, it's very likely that the author of that essay simply didn't like Stein's style. The reasons given in that text kind of, point to the author's biases. Take the issue of punctuation for one. Anybody who says the punctuation or the lack of punctuation in Stein's writing doesn't serve a purpose, they clearly haven't read her essay titled Poetry and Grammar. Stein viewed punctuation as a crutch, as a tool that was simply unnecessary. And so, well, relying on a tool like that encouraged authors to write weaker sentences. This is a unique perspective that's worth considering, not something we can simply write off. Second, the idea that Stein took Cubism and approach to writing, applied those concepts to her writing, and that Cubism was somehow incompatible with language, that idea completely ignores the changes in poetry since Stein's day. There's been quite a lot of poetry that relies on the sounds of words and the images conjured by what seem like totally nonsensical phrases. Stein's work is of massive literary influence, as an early example of that. And as for Stein's relationships with other authors and artists, you only have to look at Hemingway's famous style to see a Stein's influence. The simple, common words, the repetition, a lot of what we think as Hemingway's came directly from Stein. She really changed the way people around her were working. It wasn't just a social connection.
Summarize the points made in the lecture you just heard, explaining how they cast doubt on points made in the reading.
Very good. All right, so it's time for us to practice, okay? So what I'm gonna do right now, dear students, is I am sending to the WhatsApp group two different links, okay? I am sending them right now. Okay, there are 3 people, so 3 different links. Okay, awesome. There you are. So first, second, and third. So if you open these links, dear students, you're gonna notice these are basically Google documents, all right? And what we have here is that it's in this particular place where you're going to write down your essay right now from the passages we have read and listened to. And thus, I'm going to be able to review it and, of course, to give you some feedback for your practice in this particular exercise, okay? So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to sort out these links. And in this case, let us do it this way. So Elsa, please, dear Elsa, you're going to have the first link, okay, the one that says first. Here, Claudia, you're going to have the one that says second, okay? The link that says second group is going to be yours. And Romanes, you're going to have the link that says third group, okay? Very good. So Elsa, the first one, Claudia, the one that says second, and Romanes, the one that says third. All right, so please, all of you can open your Google Documents. What you can do is to scroll down until the end. And of course, make yourself some space, right? Like this. And here you're going to write down your essay, okay? Here you're going to be able to correct it and, of course, to offer you some feedback about your writing. So you know that you have 20 minutes for writing this. In this case, of course, we are not going to have the entire time because of the time. Anyways, what we're going to do right now is I'm going to send, I'm going to give you time, okay? I'm going to here start my chronometer on my screen, and you'll be able to write down your essays, okay? And what I'm going to do is at the end, I'm going to, when we finalize the class, I'm going to call you back. And of course, I'm going to offer you some feedback, right? And that is how we're going to work, all right? So please, all of you enter your Google Documents, all right? Elsa the first one, Claudia the second one, Roman is the third one. And here I have the chronometer. You'll have your, in this case, you're going to have 15 minutes, okay, dear students, because of the time. You're not gonna have the entire 20 minutes for writing the essay, but it's okay. Of course, I'm gonna evaluate your responses until the instance or until the point you manage to write down your essay. And of course, don't worry, because on Monday we are still going to practice for this. Therefore, it's not something that's, let's say, well, we're not going to have practice. We're going to have a lot of practice. It's just that, as I say, for today, we're just going to practice for 15 minutes, and then I'm going to give you some feedback. All right. So please, all of you enter your Google document. Is there any question with regard to what are we going to do, dear students? Okay.
Well, should I have to write in the first link?
Yes, exactly. In the first link, dear Elsa. Very well. You're in the first one. You can open it. Okay, my pleasure. You can scroll down, find your page, right? Make yourself some space. And then Claudia, the second one, and Romanev, the third link. Okay. So please, dear students, enter your documents because I'm going to be checking you out every single second through my computer. And please, you can start, all of you, writing your essays. You have there the template. You can please start writing your essays now. When the time is over, I'll stop the chronometer and I'll give you some feedback until the point you managed to write. Okay, so please start. You can use the template, of course, we're practicing. Open your documents and write your essay. Okay, very good. I'm gonna be here if you have any question. Instead of speaking, you can send a message maybe to the chat box, just so that we cannot perturbate other people, right, when they are writing. So please, if you have any question, write to me through the WhatsApp group or write to me through the chat box, preferably. Okay, very good. I'm here for any of your questions. All right. Well, the time is over. Thank you very much, students, for having reading those essays. I am very much eager to have a glance on them. And well, it's now our opportunity for us to start with the feedback. And well, let's go. Let us start this feedback with Elsa. Let us review what Elsa managed to write. Don't worry, dear students, if you didn't manage to, of course, complete the exam, or well, it's not an exam, right? Complete the practice, let's say, because it's not something mandatory to complete it now. We're just practicing. We're just starting to get used to this. I know that we do not normally write in English when we are, of course, in our daily lives. So, of course, it's a complete different adventure. Now, apart from that, you didn't have the entire 20 minutes. So, of course, in 5 minutes, you can write a bunch of words, right? So, please. Don't worry, we're just practicing, okay? Well, let us see what Elsa managed to write. Here I have what she managed to write. Let us review it. Okay, there, dear Elsa, let us see what you wrote. Well, you have the following. It says, the reading passage extra lets off the way of the writing gives some sort of negative impact if the authors do not use the correct way of writing in her message, okay? The reading passage extract lets off okay. Writing.
I was trying to copy your example video.
Yes. Yeah, like it would be like the reading passage extra lets off with maybe with the idea, right? Let's off with the idea that the way of the yeah, it will be like that. Let's off in this case, let's off, right? With the idea that the way of the writing gives some sort of negative impact if the authors do not use the correct way of writing in well, in this case, as you are writing like in plural, right? Authors do not use the correct way of writing in their message. It would be in this case, right? In their message. All right, very good. In their message. Nonetheless, here notice that there is a little s. It's missing. Nonetheless, right? It's nonetheless like that. Nonetheless, in the listening here, every single time we write like after a comma. In this case, of course, it is not necessary to use a capital letter. Okay, so after a comma, not necessary to use a capital letter. So nonetheless, in the listening lecture, it is said that it does not matter for for readers if writers do not use a very formal way of writing. Okay, I guess here for readers, right? If writers do not use a very formal way of writing. I am going to proceed to list these two views. Very good. And here, let us just remember very quickly, recommendably, 2 points, right? Finalizing the introduction, because that way we are, as I say, warning the reviewer, hey, I am about to start with my body, right? I just ended with my introduction. Now the rest, what follows in the essay, it's my body, right? Those 2 points. But very good. It was a very good introduction. You summarized in your own words what you consider to be the main idea in a very superficial way of the reading passage and also of the lecture, just as you had to do. Very well, dear Elsa. And then you also wrote a little bit of the body. Let's say it says first in the reading passage, it is claimed that an unclear, in this case, an unclear, right? An unclear communicate thought, okay, thought, good, is not influential for the lectures, okay? For example, a plotting that has unclear meaning does, okay, very good. All right, so of course, in this case, you didn't manage to finalize the idea, but it's totally fine. As I say, we're just practicing, and trust me, this Monday is going to be a fantastic opportunity for us to practice this several times and with the entire 20 minutes, and we're going to be reviewing, okay? Well, anyways, thank you very much. Let us go with you, dear Claudia. Let's go with your essay. Let's see what you managed to write. I know you were a little bit sick, but great. Let's see what you wrote. It says, the reading extra lets off with the idea that the work of Gertrude Stein, 20th century author and poet, had less impact than that of her contemporaries. Nonetheless, in the lecture, it is said that his understanding of Stein's work is limited. I am going to proceed to expose both views. Fantastic. I think this is perfect. It's a very good summarized mention of both passages. And I love the fact that you, well, from what I can see, know how to correctly use, in this case, commas as some sort of parenthesis, right? Some sort of synthetic parenthesis. Very good. Firstly, in the reading passage, it is claimed that Stein's works are difficult to read. They don't show emotions and thoughts clearly. Now, for example, here, maybe what I could recommend you is notice that this sentence, like they don't show emotions and thoughts clearly, is an independent sentence. So whenever you're going to write an independent sentence in English, at least, it is recommendable to do it after a period like this, or alternatively, after semicolon, like that. I know that in Spanish, of course, the grammar rules and, well, norms are sometimes different, but in English, as I say, it's recommendable to, whenever you're going to use an independent sentence, right? A sentence that sustains itself without any other sentence that doesn't depend on any other previous idea to subsist as an entire substance, as this one, for example, they don't show emotions and thoughts clearly, a complete sentence, right? Because it has its subject, a predicate, etc. Would be better if you write them, as I say, after a semicolon or a period. Anyways, right? Very good. Furthermore, great, good connector, not including conventional punctuation was worthless. Nevertheless, in the listening presentation, great. I love the fact that you here mentioned a compliment, right? Very good. Nevertheless, in the listening presentation, it is noted that the punctuation is really important to transmit a point of view. It has a purpose. Notice that, for example, here you did mention this independent sentence with a period, right? Very good. Fantastic, dear Claudia. This is a very good first paragraph. You are very much, as I say, quickly and concisely summarizing. Yeah, no, it's okay. Don't worry, dear Claudia. Very good passage. Well, the very good paragraph, excuse me, summarizing very concisely both passages and with a fantastic grammar. Great. Secondly, in the reading excerpt, it is pointed out that because of Cubism, she emphasized visual representation. Here again, for example, she focused, right? Notice that this is an independent sentence, right? So maybe instead of writing this, you could have written, excuse me, semicolon, right? She focused on the sound instead of the meaning of the words. Here, I guess this was just a blunder. The listening passage claims notwithstanding, poetry was influenced by Cubism and always it changes among the time. Okay, very good, fantastic. Very good second paragraph as well. Let's go with the final one. Finally, in the reading selection, it is stated that the most important thing about Stein was her talent. She had an influential role in introducing artists. Good. On the other hand, in the presentation, it is mentioned that Stein influenced the style of Hemingway's works. Great, awesome. I think it's a very good essay there, Claudia. You are mentioning every single main idea. You have a wondrous grammar, very good orthography too. Let's see how many words you wrote. I have here my word counter. Let's check that out. You got 193 words. Great. You are within the limit. That is to say, you wrote more than 150. That means you're doing great. Very good, Claudia. I think that you are certainly doing great. And of course, as we practice more, you're going to polish even more those details that, of course, are going to help you to attain perfection, right? Great, Claudia. Very good essay. Fantastic. Well, awesome. So we're going to stop here then, our class. Okay, I think it was a pretty good time having practiced and, of course, learn how to apply the structure. So please, in this case, well, Elsa left. In this case, please, dear Claudia, I'm going to take your assistance. And please, as I do that, well, Elsa is coming back as well. Okay, sure. Okay, sorry. I'm gonna launch the poll. Okay, sorry. Not sure what is going on. Like that. Okay, great. So please, dear Claudia, in this case, you're the only one, but please help me with your kind responses to the poll. And I'm going to take your assistance and, of course, Elsa's assistance as well. So let me please enter my sheet here. All right. So I got you here, Claudia Hernandez. I got you, don't worry. And also Elsa Maria. Great. Very good. Well, thank you very much, dear Claudia. Fantastic. So I'm going to be seeing you. Bye. I'm going to be seeing you next time. Have a wonderful weekend. I hope that you get way better. Thank you very much. See you.